Well, welcome to the 567 Estate Planning Seminar, EPS style. I'm your host, Certified Financial Planner and Certified Legal Document Preparer, Jim Tewalt. And I just want to say here that EPS is honored to be one of the 567 workshop presenters. So let me give you a little bit of a bio on me. I'm married to Mary for a little over 40 years. I've got 5 children, 7 grandchildren. I'm a Wisconsin native that immigrated to Arizona back in 1986. And I've been in this business a little over 40 years. So I love educating people on finances. And I think you're going to have a great time today. We're going to cover a lot of material in a short time. So let's get going. Hang on, strap yourself in, put on a seatbelt. Let's go. All right. First of all, a little disclosure, and this is something that those who regulate our industry require. Just want you to know that this is an educational program only. We are not going to make any offers or any solicitations for the purchase or sale of any specific securities, investments or investment strategies. All investments involve risk and the risk of loss, of course. And any strategy that we talk about here should not be tried at home without the assistance of a trained tax or professional in the investment area. So that being said, let's get started. So we are going to take a look at the lives of a couple of gentlemen here. Do you recognize either of these two? They're celebrities whose stories will inspire you. A little bit more about them later. So again, we're going to cover a lot of information in a very short period of time, and you are going to have questions. Our assistants will help you to ask them. I think the first question might be, how smart is it to ask questions of a person who obviously cannot spell the word question? Well, I did that just to see if you're awake, just to get you tuned in here. So here we go. The topics we're going to cover today include what is your estate? What is an estate plan? What's the rush? Why now? How to do it and how to do it right, planning for future generations, how some people can put their retirement plan on cruise control and have absolutely no anxiety. By the way, you can learn how to do that as well. How to calculate the value of your estate, the importance of having a trust and a life insurance policy if you are from or have or participate in a blended family. We're also going to talk about how to not disinherit your children and your grandchildren because of death, divorce, or other triggering events. A few words about gold and silver seems to be on everybody's mind these days. And what is a fiduciary pro, and why would you want to work with one? Plus has a kind of an extra bonus here. Just make sure you get your money's worth. And by the way, ma'am, your husband did not pay for this seminar. So but to make sure that this is of real value, we're going to talk about 6 threats to wealth preservation. So as a financial advisor, I get asked a lot of questions. This is one of them. I'm married. I have young children. Not much in the way of assets. We're just getting started. The bank owns most of our home. Oh, yeah, my wife and I have term life insurance. We have about $2 million between the two of us. Do we really need an estate plan? Well, the key to this this question is young children. And what I will say to you is this: we've got parents here with a couple $1 million of life insurance. If they perish on a vacation trip, there is no insurance company in the world that is going to write a check to underage children. So yes, an estate plan is really necessary in this kind of a situation. So, okay, let's get back to our pictures of these two gentlemen. Let's meet our first celebrity. This is Randy Pausch. He is a computer science professor, was a computer science professor at Carnegie Mellon University. He was unfortunately diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 45. And he is famous for delivering a last lecture that actually became a YouTube sensation, was made into a book, and garnered attention from Oprah, Good Morning America, Time Magazine, and more. Randy unfortunately died at age 47 after a long fight with cancer. Our next celebrity here is James, and I'm not going to try to pronounce James' last name, but he is a famous actor and producer, best known for his role as Tony Soprano, the crime boss in HBO's The Sopranos. He died very unexpectedly at age 51, and he left only 20% of his estate to his wife, and about $30 million of the $70 million estate that he had went to his Uncle Sam, went to taxes. I have a client that, well, Ted and Helene, they've passed away now, but they set up a revocable living trust back into the 90s. And the one thing I'd like to say about them is that after Ted passed away in 1992, Helene lived another 24 years. She passed away in 2016, I believe. And during that period of time, she was able to give away almost $700,000 to her children, her church, and her charities. And she was able to do that based on the planning that her husband had done for her before he passed. And then 24 years after he passed away, and she passed away, we went looking for his beneficiaries. And imagine their surprise 24 years later when they're getting substantial inheritances from their grandfather. So you can do this, and you can do this right. So let's start with the basics here. What is your estate? Well, first of all, it's cash and bank and credit union accounts, your home, other real estate, land, leases, personal property, vehicles, watercraft, campers, jewelry, firearms, collectibles, cryptocurrencies, investments, 401ks, annuities, and even your life insurance is part of your estate, especially when it comes to calculating federal estate taxes. So how do we calculate, or how does one calculate the real value of your estate? And there's two steps in that process. One is to add up the value of all of your assets, and then to subtract your mortgages, loans, or other obligations, and that resulting figure is your net worth. Now, you really, from an estate standpoint, need to add your life insurance death benefits to that figure. And then the result, including your life insurance, is the real value of your estate. So what's an estate plan? Well, an estate plan basically is a written, properly signed, witnessed, and notarized document that conforms to the statutes of the state in which it was created, that clearly communicates your wishes and instructions for the management of your financial affairs while you are alive, if you're unable to do so, plus the efficient economical transfer of your estate at your death to your heirs, and appoints and empowers the person or persons you would choose to carry out your wishes. So it's more than just words on a napkin, although what's called a holographic will or a handwritten will can be legal in the state of Arizona. It is much better to do it in the formal way. So what are some of the estate planning concerns or things that people think about when they're setting up their estate plan? Well, first of all, the efficient economical transfer at death, which would mean avoiding the time and the cost of probate. But probate is actually pretty easy to get around. And in fact, I've got a slide coming up in a few minutes where I'll show you how to do that at virtually no cost. Conservatorship is another huge issue. And now, what's conservatorship? Well, imagine yourself going to the on your way to the title company. You've just sold your home. You're going there to sign the paperwork and transfer title to the new owners. and I'm going to speak to the wife now. You look over and you're driving and your husband is sitting in the passenger seat, and suddenly he is slumped over and his eyes look a little glassy. He's alive, but he's just not moving. He could be having like a mini stroke, and absent proper paperwork, that closing event is not going to happen. What could happen at that particular point would be the necessity for the wife to file for conservatorship, which is a court supervised process, not unlike probate, where the court is going to oversee the administration of your family's health, or family's finances. Could be health as well. But if you've got a spouse that can't sign their name and a signature is required, the courts are going to have to get involved at that particular point. Another big concern is taxes, although these days you can transfer your estate to your heirs, and there is no federal estate tax until you reach a threshold of at least $12.5 million for a single person, or $25 million for a couple. You can give as much as you want to your spouse, although if your spouse is a non-US citizen, there are some conditions there. But when it comes to leaving money to your other heirs, your children and so forth, the government does step in, and there are taxes on your right to do so. So avoiding those taxes becomes a consideration in your planning. And then controlling your estate after your death. This has become a huge issue these days because there's a lot of, I hear a lot of stories about kids and grandkids that fall prey to substance abuse problems. Some of them just cannot manage money well. So the ability to control the distribution of your estate after your death is becoming a bigger and bigger consideration these days. And then, of course, selecting a personal representative, someone who is going to be responsible for carrying out your wishes when you are either incapacitated, if we're talking about conservatorship, or at your death. So what about future generations? Well, I do have some thoughts on this, some beliefs on this, and I might be a little dogmatic, so humor me if you don't happen to share them. But my personal feeling is that when it comes to my children, I want to take care of them. I don't want to make them take care of me. I changed their diapers when they were little kids. I do not want them returning the favor when I'm a big kid. I also want to know and avoid the biggest threats to preserving my wealth and your wealth. We want to make sure that your family wants to imitate you. One of the bigger problems that we see sometimes is when there is no estate plan, the family just runs amok. It's just not a good situation. Avoiding taxes, but what I say to people is don't let the tax tail wag the dog. Sometimes what you want to do involves paying some taxes, but what you want to do is important enough to do it, whether or not there's taxes involved. So use leverage, use life insurance, especially in situations where you have heirs, maybe a family business where some of the kids want to be involved in the business, some do not. And those that are involved in the business don't necessarily want to share the profits with the kids that are not involved in the business. So you can use life insurance to kind of even out the distributions between your beneficiaries. This is a biggie for me, using your wealth to get your family involved in influencing their thinking, not only now, but in generations to come. I'd like to be remembered as that grandfather or that uncle that planned and did things that enhanced the lifestyle of future generations. Let's talk a little bit about probate. I promised you a slide. Probate, very, very easy to involve or to avoid. First of all, you can do it by taking assets that are at the bank or the credit union and adding what's called a POD, or payable on death, designation. It just simply means that when you pass away, the funds in those accounts are going to go to the named beneficiaries on those accounts. You can do the same thing with your brokerage accounts at Merrill Lynch or T. Rowe Price or Schwab. You set up what's called a TOD, or transfer on death, for the brokerage accounts. And basically what that means is that instead of selling off the stocks, they will just transfer the various securities in the brokerage account to your named beneficiaries. Of course, you can use beneficiary designations on life insurance and annuities. Can't avoid those. And beneficiary designations are always required on IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 401as, and 457 plans. So whoever you name as beneficiary is going to get those funds. And then you can use in the state of Arizona what's called a beneficiary deed to transfer real estate to your heirs, or you can set it up, the ownership in the real estate as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. And if you do that, then that property is going to go directly to the joint tenant. Years ago, there was a article on the back page of the Wall Street Journal. There was a picture of a mother and a son. The son was there because he was a stockbroker and he was getting sued over some things that he evidently did with his client accounts. And mom's picture was there because mom had put her son as an owner on her house, and because he was being sued and the house was in joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, she was in danger of losing her home. So we don't want to do things that way. There's ways of doing things, or there are shortcuts that actually can sometimes wind up being the longest distance between 2 points. We don't want to do that. We want to do things in a way that they work out and there's no pitfalls. And then for personal property, you can use a letter of instruction. No court is going to look at that. And then a small estate affidavit in the state of Arizona. If your estate is under $75,000, there is no formal probate required. If there's real estate involved, then the threshold is $100,000. So probate actually is a pretty easy pitfall to bypass. So just to do a little recapping here, estate planning tools that you can use that are in your toolbox: POD, payable on death, on bank accounts; transfer on death on brokerage accounts; POA, which is a power of attorney. And by the way, those are only valid when the granting person in the power of attorney is still alive. Once you pass away, they are no longer valid, no longer usable. Or you can use ownership such as joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, or community property with rights of survivorship. Again, those can have their they can be easy to use in some respects, but they can have their drawbacks as well. And in my opinion, just not the best way of going about avoiding probate and controlling your estate for the future. Of course, you can use a simple will, powers of attorney again, and the beneficiary deed. So those are the tools in the toolbox. My favorite tool in the toolbox is a revocable living trust. Now, why would you say that? Well, first of all, revocable living trusts are very, very flexible. Any assets that you own in the trust that are titled in the name of your trust will avoid probate and conservatorship. They can protect your heirs when left in trust from lawsuits, creditors, even toxic spouses and challenged marriage situations. They can address specific needs of certain beneficiaries. And you can tailor your plan to your particular wishes. Again, if you have a business and you've got 5 kids and 2 of them want to run it and 3 don't, you can tailor make your plan so that everybody is treated fairly. And fairly does not necessarily always mean equally, but you can treat them fairly using a trust. You can also enhance the lifestyle of special needs beneficiaries. If you have a special needs child, one of the things you know is that if they're going to qualify for governmental benefits or other benefits, there is limitations on the income that they can have and the property that they can own. If you are going to leave your estate to a special needs beneficiary, if you left it to them outright, it could actually endanger their benefits or maybe even keep them from getting their benefits. So you can use what's called special needs provisions inside the trust to enhance the quality of life of a special needs beneficiary without endangering their benefits. You could also provide a life estate in a home if you were married in a second marriage situation, as an example, and maybe one of the spouses owns the home, but wants the other spouse to be able to live in that home if the first spouse passes away. You can provide that by setting up what's called a life estate in the house in the trust and allowing that person to live there for the rest of their life if you wish, or for some set period of time. We talked about leaving the business to all children and naming one or two to manage it. You can, most trusts will have language in there that deals with substance abusing beneficiaries, where the trustee is able to take care of them, but not necessarily make a direct distribution to them, which they might just take and go out and use it to buy more of the substance that they're abusing, thus endangering their own lives. We had a situation here not long ago where, with a husband and wife, second marriage, they both had children. The wife owned the house and about 90% of their entire estate. She wanted to make sure that her husband was included in the ownership of that house. And although she did not want to transfer the ownership outright, what we did do is put language in her revocable living trust that basically said, if she dies first, he can live in the house for as long as he wishes. If he remarries, however, he must transfer ownership of the house to her children. So again, the trust is very flexible. You can do some things that you might want to do to just to take care of your beneficiaries, but without endangering your other beneficiaries in the process. And then there's what's called dynasty trust provisions, which basically allow you to give your estate to your children, not outright, but to do it in trust. And if it's done in trust, it protects them from creditors, lawsuits, and toxic spouses. And in the state of Arizona, you can protect beneficiaries for up to 500 years after your death. So let's hop into another question I get sometimes as an advisor. We're happily married, second marriage for both of us. We blended our children, moved here from back east. We've got a farm in Pennsylvania. We share ownership with siblings in a farm in Iowa, a vacation home in Montana. We have 401k plans. And by the way, I inherited my grandfather's mineral rights in Texas. Do I need a trust? Well, a couple of operative things here. First of all, second marriage and children on both sides. So a trust, where you could define your language there would be could be very helpful. But the big thing here is absent the trust or ownership of the properties in the trust, you're going to have probate in the state of Pennsylvania, in Iowa, in Montana, and Texas. And of course, if you're living in Arizona, you'll have probate here as well. So how are we doing on questions? Have you written down any yet? Do you have questions roaming around in your mind? So your estate plan should be tailored to you and your family, linked to your assets, funded. In other words, if you set up a revocable living trust, it's very important to have your assets titled in the name of that trust. If that does not happen, those assets will probably wind up going through the probate process which means you would have spent a considerable sum of money setting up your estate plan, only to have it come apart at the seams because it wasn't done in a complete fashion. Your estate plan should be legal but understandable, especially if your children are going to be your successor trustees. It should contain provisions that allow you to manage, or someone to manage, your affairs during incapacitation or disability while you're alive. Transfer your estate to your loved ones when you die efficiently, economically, and then prevent them from losing their estate to creditors, lawsuits, toxic spouses, or mismanagement. And where feasible, if your estate is of significant size, it should be multi-generational. So back to funded. Funded just simply means that your assets are titled in the name of the trust, that your beneficiary designations are to the trust. In a situation where there's one person, maybe a widow or a widower, oftentimes the trust is named as the primary beneficiary. But where there's a husband and wife situation, the trust is usually named as contingent beneficiary, because the husband or wife would be able to control or do things with those assets in a more efficient and economical fashion when they're titled in the surviving spouse's name. So let's talk a little bit about, excuse me, choosing your personal representative, agent, or successor trustee. And personal representative is the term that's used under a will. Agent is the term that's used under a power of attorney. Successor trustee is the name that's used under a living trust. But basically, it's the duties are all the same. It just depends what document that you are working under, and what document you are working under, then that kind of dictates the title of the person that's actually doing the work. So what are some of the characteristics that you would be looking for in a personal representative, agent, or successor trustee? Well, first of all, trustworthy. I guess if we're talking about trust, that should be kind of a no-brainer. To be a leader, but not necessarily a dominator. We have 5 children. I don't think we've got any dominators in the group, but we do have some strong leaders. So, but if you had a child that was just really a dominator, you might want to set things up in such a fashion that that child would not necessarily be able to run roughshod over everybody else. Someone who's able to act as a fiduciary, and by a fiduciary, I mean someone who will put others' needs above their own. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be a corporate fiduciary, or it could even be a trust department at a bank or trust company. So recapping here, who needs an estate plan? Well, as we talked about this, young couples with children and life insurance, older couples concerned about incapacity, couples in second marriages, couples in first marriages, and I guess it goes without saying that if you have more than 2 marriages, you would be included as well. People who own property in multiple states, people who want to protect their beneficiaries from creditors, lawsuits, toxic spouses, or even from themselves. Anyone who owns real estate. Most of my attorney friends will tell me that if you own real estate, if you own a home, you should have, in their opinion, a revocable living trust. And then, of course, the parents of special needs children, which brings us down to just about anyone who owns anything. If you don't own much, you could probably use that slide that I showed you on how to avoid probate to do it in a very economical fashion, but still it needs to be done to keep you out of the probate arena. So we're going to talk a little bit about threats to generational wealth. I've given you the big 6 here. First of all, premature death. If you're in the part of your life where you're still accumulating and preparing for retirement, and one of you passes prematurely, that can have a severe impact on your estate planning. So it's just good to have something in place for that. Or living too long, outspending your assets. The government, of course, what I call the government effect, which is taxes and inflation. Those are things that we cannot control. We can complain about them, but we really can't control them. But we can take them into consideration when we're setting up our estate planning or estate plan. Spending, your own personal spending habits, lawsuits, toxic spouses, medical emergencies, what I call the POGO syndrome, or Uncle Larry. And actually, these are two syndromes. The Pogo syndrome, if you remember Pogo, he appeared in a comic strip in a newspaper years and years ago. Pogo was a lovable swamp rat. And the one thing that Pogo said frequently, which just kind of always stuck in my mind, and I use the phrase quite a bit, is, "We have encountered the enemy and he is us." So we'll move on from there. Uncle Larry. Well, Uncle Larry was my wife's uncle, and his wife, Aunt Betty. They, in their estate planning or their retirement planning, they had a thing that they said often, and what they said was, when Uncle Larry retires, we're going to take that cruise. When Uncle Larry retires, we're going to Hawaii. When Uncle Larry retires, we're going to go fishing up in northern Wisconsin. Everything was when Uncle Larry retired. Well, Uncle Larry did retire, and a few days later, and this was, they were living in Wisconsin at the time. They went down to Chicago to our Arlington racetrack, and somewhere in the third or fourth race, everyone looked over at Uncle Larry, and he had passed away. So Uncle Larry and Aunt Betty waited a lifetime to do the things they really wanted to do, and when the time came to do them, they were unable to do them. So in your planning, we like a balanced approach where we plan for the future, but we don't ignore the presence either. And then having a formal plan, because if you don't have a formal plan and you've got children and or grandchildren, no formal plan, no buy-in. No buy-in, and that can be a chaotic situation. So let's pause for just a moment here. We've just given you a lot of information. I've given you a lot of information. I want to just take a moment here to make an offer to you. If you're confused at this point, if you've got questions and you would like answers to them, check in on our online calendar, schedule a no-cost, no-obligation consultation, and during that period of time, we can give you specific answers to specific questions based on your specific circumstances. If you want advice from me, what I tell people is, I can give you great advice if you give me good information. If you don't give me good information, or if you give me incomplete information, you will be incredibly surprised at how bad the advice can get. So none of us want to be James. None of us want to go through a situation where we leave most of our estate to Uncle Sam, or we just leave a chaotic mess behind. So if you've got questions, we are really here for you. We want to help you. Give us a call and give us a chance to be of further assistance to you. Okay, so moving on here we go. All of this planning means nothing if you have no estate to pass on to your loved ones. So many brokers and mutual fund salespeople and financial advisors approach retirement planning this way: build up a nest egg, or build up a pot of money, $1 million, $2 million, or own a 12% mutual fund. That's one way of going about it, but what we've been able to show people oftentimes is that that way sometimes just does not work. But what the assumption is, that if you have the $1 million or the $2 million or you have the 12% mutual fund. And by the way, a 12% mutual fund does not pay 12% or earn 12% every year. The way the law works is that could be like the 10-year average earnings of the fund, which means that there could have been some down years. There could have been some years where the earnings or where the fund went up more than 12%. And the what's called sequence of returns, or when the down years happen, can have a big impact on your retirement. So in our business, there is what's called the 4% per year rule. And basically what that means is that if you don't take out more than 4% of your retirement assets in any given year, you have about, well, depending on the simulations that they run, the computer simulations, about a 76% chance of success. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was going in for surgery tomorrow morning and the doctor said, Jim, I have to warn you, there's a 24% chance you will not come off the table. I think I would be looking for a second opinion. So what gets in the way of this 4% rule working? Well, I've given you three examples here. The period of time between 2000 and 2003, the period of time between 2007 and 08, and March of 2020. March of 2020 should come to mind for just about everybody. That was the period of time when the word COVID became a household word. And during these times, the market dropped 30% or more. And what happens when that happens for most investors is they lose heart. They will say to me, Jim, I've got to get out. I cannot afford to lose all of my money, especially if they're retired. It's a little easier if they're still working, but if they are retired, even though from a textbook standpoint and from a historical standpoint, staying in the market is the best thing you can possibly do, they cannot do it. They go out. So knowing that that is the way people think, we've got to come up with an alternative, in my opinion. And by the way, it's the same mentality that you had when you were working. Instead of focusing on growth or just growing a nest egg of $1 million or $2 million or $5 million or whatever it is, or hitting the one stock retirement mother lode, instead of doing those things, we want you to focus on building a predictable stream of increasing income in retirement. And to do that, we suggest a multi-tier retirement income plan, a plan to create like a personal pension. Everybody, I think, knows what an employer-sponsored pension looks like. You know, you get an income when you retire for the rest of your life. Well, you can do that personally as well. You can set up your own personal pension plan that can produce predictable streams of increasing income without market risk for some of your money. In fact, if you compared it to owning real estate, it would be like buying, holding, and renting out the property instead of buying and flipping. It's an income-focused investment portfolio if you're going to be in the stock market. And it's a plan that should take care of you for as long as you live and then be able to leave a financial legacy to your heirs. Now, that sounds pretty attractive and maybe even impossible, but it is doable. So tier one is what's called safely structured retirement planning annuities. And annuities, these are specially designed annuities that use stock market gains and actuarial science, much like life insurance in reverse. If you buy life insurance, you know that you can spend $50 and get a $500,000 term life insurance policy. And if you came over to pick up your policy and then walked out the door and drove down to the end of our street and got on the very busy road and you didn't look as you entered traffic and suddenly you were a $500,000 claim, you know that the insurance company would write a check for $500,000 to your heirs even though you just gave them $50. Now, how can a company stay in business doing that? Well, they cannot do it, obviously, if everybody goes down to the end of the street and pulls out into traffic without looking. But most people don't do that. And when it comes to retirement, it's kind of a reverse psychology here. The people that live the shorter period of time fund those that are going to live for a longer period of time. So these specially designed annuities can link future interest earnings to stock market gains using an index without exposing your money to the market. And they can create increasing streams of predictable income that is contractually guaranteed for you and your spouse's life. That's contractually guaranteed income for as long as either of you can fog a mirror. It also includes an acceleration of income during extended medical emergencies, or to pay for long-term care or home care or private duty nursing. And by the way, you can get into these annuities without any medical underwriting. So if your health isn't all that great, you can still qualify for this option. I took a proposal from a recent illustration that we gave to a client. This was a person that was buying an annuity at age 63. They were going to let it build up for a couple of years and then tap into the income. And this proposal was based on a $100,000 deposit, accumulated interest for 4 years, and then based on the prior 10-year results in this particular annuity, this is what the income stream could look like. Now, I'm going to give you a caveat here. If you did an annuity like this, there is no way in God's green earth that your results are going to look exactly the same, because the market is not going to duplicate itself over a 10-year period of time. So this is for illustration purposes only, to show you the potential of what the annuity could do. It could provide an increasing stream of income. $8,000 at age 67, $10,000 at 68, 11, almost 12 at 69, out by age 80, over $43,000 a year, by age 90, over $139,000 a year, and in your 90s, $185,000 a year. Now, you would say, well, how can you get an increasing income from a static asset? And the answer to that question is compound interest plus actuarial science. The company that actually did this illustration has been around for 130 years. They're very solid financially. Their net worth is over $6 billion. And honestly, they don't do this because they love you. They do love you, but they do this because they make money at it. So in tier 2, we use the stock market, but we use it with a little different strategy, or a little different approach that many stock people or advisors do. I like to focus on creating predictable streams of increasing lifetime income. Why? Because this strategy works harder for you when the market is down. When the market is down and you own stocks or other securities that are paying dividends or other distributions, and we are using those distributions to buy additional shares during a period of time when the market is down, while you're building for retirement, your plan works harder for you when the market is down than when the market is up. I call this a two-trick pony. It gives you increasing income, the potential for increasing income, plus it can provide portfolio growth as well. Many of these stocks have grown in value significantly over the years, and their dividends have also grown significantly over the years. But when we do it this way, we need not rely on the market growth to make your retirement plan work. We don't have to have that Monte Carlo simulation with a 24% chance that you're not going to get off the table. And that allows you to experience reduced anxiety, to know that you'll be able to provide for yourself and your spouse, and then leave an inheritance to your children and future generations. Now, the third tier is life insurance, and we talked about that a little bit, but depending on how you set up your plan, you can always guarantee that there will be a chunk of money going to your heirs by using life insurance to do that. And that would be specially designed life insurance. You can also use life insurance to balance distributions to your heirs. You can use life insurance today to protect your cash as an alternative to banks. We just went through a situation here where several smaller banks got into financial difficulties. Well, that unnerves some people. One of the things that you can do is use cash value life insurance to protect your money, to actually put it in a situation where it grows on a tax deferred basis, and even can be taken out as on a cash or on a tax-free basis. And in the state of Arizona, if it's in there for at least 2 years, it grants you creditor protection. So a lot of good reasons to own life insurance. And then you can use life insurance to provide income tax-free wealth to future generations. Some of the most prolific families in America do that on a regular basis. They buy a life insurance on the matriarch or patriarch of the family, and they use that life insurance to enhance the what they're able to leave to future generations. Okay, so let's bounce off of that topic for a minute and talk a little bit about gold and silver. Why gold and silver? Well, first of all, we have at this particular point currency. We're probably moving towards a digital currency, but our currency is what's called a fiat currency. In other words, it's not backed by any tangible assets at this point. There was a time with a silver certificate where it said right on the dollar bill that it was redeemable for silver at any bank. Well, you don't see that language anymore on a dollar bill. There was a time when you could redeem gold or redeem a currency for gold. That is no longer possible. So gold and silver, in my opinion, are not investments. However, they're an excellent hedge against inflation, economic chaos, or monetary collapse. So owning gold and silver, I think, is important for people, especially if you do it in what's called easily recognizable or negotiable form. So one of the things I like is called junk silver, and that doesn't mean it's just junky silver. What it means is that it's U.S. coinage minted prior to 1965, which can be up to 90% silver. So if you were passing that type of currency down at the local grocery store in exchange for bread and milk and so forth, you could easily show someone that there's no copper edge on the coin. You could even take out your penknife and scratch it, no copper, meaning that you have something that has some intrinsic value to it. So if you're going to buy gold and silver, remember one thing: gold and silver is a pretty much unregulated industry. So you want to buy from a reputable source. I can remember situations earlier in our time when we got to Arizona, one situation in particular where we took a gal back to the dealer that sold her coins because the markup on those coins was over 70%. A fair markup is fair, but there's a limit. So you want to be able to take physical possession, keep in a safe or safe place. You can do this in your IRA these days, and you can even take physical possession in your IRA of gold and silver, but there's let's just say there's a lot of traps that go into that process. And we've actually had clients that had some bad experiences just in doing that. So it would be my recommendation that you don't do it in an IRA because of all the rules and regulations, but do buy the gold and keep it on your premises or in a safe place. Why do it with us? Well, we started buying gold and silver for our clients a few years ago. Again, I mentioned that this is an unregulated industry, and we actually had a couple of situations where clients bought gold and silver and they got ripped off. And I just got a little upset about that. So we formed a relationship with a firm in Texas. They're very honorable people. In fact, they will even allow me to lock in pricing with my word. But I have to keep my word when I do that, which means if you buy gold and silver from us, we're going to take you at your word and make you keep it as well. We believe in modest markups. I think we are doing right now, if the purchase is under $100,000, it's 5%. If it's over 100,000, it's 3%. We believe in transparency. We actually show clients our bill of sales so they know exactly what we paid, and that they know exactly what they paid to work with us. And then, of course, we buy back what we sell, and we'll even buy back what you bought elsewhere, and oftentimes at a better price than what you might get from the people that sold you the metals in the first place. So let's talk a little bit. What is a fiduciary pro? Fiduciary pro is basically an experienced, knowledgeable advisor who has taken a fiduciary oath. And that means we're not the type of person that says, I need a sale. I need this sale. I'm going to push your hot buttons to entice you to buy. And by the way, I'm not compelled to disclose the possible negatives or help you determine if this decision fits into your overall financial plan. I'm just here to sell this to you. Now, in our industry, we're getting a lot tougher on that, and people that sell insurance and annuities have much more stringent requirements on them to be honest with you about the nature of the product, but they have not taken, in many cases, a fiduciary oath to put you first in each and every transaction and to tell you why it might not be a good idea for you to do this particular thing. So for me personally, I'm a certified financial planner. I took a fiduciary oath when I got my CFP designation. It took me several years to get that designation and a lot of hours of hard work. And I'm not going to give it up. I'm not going to blow that designation and just, for some client transaction. I'm also a certified legal document preparer and a licensed insurance professional. So what you're looking for, and whoever you're going to work with as an advisor, is a fiduciary, number one, and then someone obviously that's competent is important as well. So here's some questions that you should be asking yourself, in my opinion, at this point. Will my present plan get me where I want to go, to my dreams and to my goals? One of the things that we do when people come in for a checkup is we give them what I call the macro look and the micro look. The macro look is, are you doing everything that you should be doing to have a successful retirement? Have you omitted any steps that are important or essential? And then secondly, from a micro standpoint, is what you are doing really appropriate for you? Just because your neighbor did something does not necessarily mean it's a good idea for you. And then how do I get my family involved? We do a fair amount of intergenerational planning where we actually sit down with mom and dad and the kids and talk about what mom and dad have done and the plan that they've put together. And it's a good time to encourage the kids to do similar type of planning. And then you want to ask your advisor, how do you get paid? Because compensation motivates actions. For us, we are pretty much fee-based. So, for example, when we manage money, we do it for a fee. If we make a lot of transactions in your account that does not benefit us, we would not do that unless there was some benefit for you. So, all right, let's recap. An estate plan is essential. How will you be remembered? Are you going to be Randy Pausch? And by the way, Randy Pausch, in his lecture at the end, he was able to say to his family, to tell them that he loved them. He was able to provide for them. He had time to put his plan together. Or are you going to be singing soprano? If you're the soprano guy, it all happened too suddenly and there was no chance to plan. There was no chance to say your goodbyes, no chance to communicate your plan to your heirs. Planning is just really important. A retirement need not be scary. We can actually do some things to really take the anxiety out of your retirement planning. I think it's important to take care of yourself, but don't stop there. Take care of your family as well. Think multi-generational, be remembered, leave a legacy. And then, of course, work with fiduciary pros, build a team. No procrastination. You're in the no procrastination zone. It's actually, and I don't want to be pushy, but it's actually exciting, rewarding. It's a great journey to put together a financial and estate plan. It's a very rewarding experience, especially when you involve your family members. It's we've done it with our family. It's just amazing. So just want to encourage you there. You're getting a lot of information today, but if you don't step up and do something with that information, we will have both wasted a lot of time. We don't want to do that. So next steps, get a checkup. We offer a no cost, no obligation consultation. What I tell people is, look, if you will invest 60 minutes in your future, I'll invest 60 minutes in your future as well. Before making your next major financial decision, start a plan, or at least begin to think in terms of a plan. If you feel uneasy with your present advisor situation, get a second opinion. Dr. Oz says that of the people who get a second opinion, 70% of people who seek second opinions take them. And then I want to encourage you to take action now. Check our online calendar, schedule your no cost, no obligation consultation. Call us, get answers to your specific questions based on your specific circumstances. When we do these consultations, you can do them in person, you can do them by phone, or you can do them by Zoom. When they're done in person, I often have people bring in a bag or a shoebox of financial papers, and we actually go through them and take a look at what they're doing. And it's a great chance for them to express their concerns or to ask questions. And we are going to use that time to address your concerns and to answer your questions. So you've been a great audience today, and we've actually finished a little bit early. So I want to thank you for your time and thank you for the questions that you're going to ask of us. I hope that you've learned a lot, and I hope that you've been stirred up to take action. And I hope that you've had as much fun listening as I did presenting. So God bless you all. I hope to see you soon, and we're over and out.